Hi there and welcome. What time of year is it right now? Well, it's graduation time. These months are full of graduates walking down the aisles from college, high school, graduate school. Everybody's getting ready to get out there into their first professional career job. And that means time for professional writing. So I wanted to revisit the differences and similarities between school and work writing so that you or your friends and colleagues and family members can be totally ready for success, impressing your supervisors, the whole works when you get out there and write in your first career. All right, so just like everything else we talk about on this channel, school versus work writing, they're going to come down to questions about who's your reader and what's your goal, just like everything else. So let's start by looking at that concept. We're just going to kind of discuss how do the readers and goals between school and work writing differ? And with that in mind, how can we kind of know what we need to start doing differently as we transition from school to work? All right, so do a little brainstorming here. When we think about our readers for school and work, who are they, right? Who's going to read what we write? And so we have a blank slide up here where we're kind of thinking, all right, who are my readers for school? What are my goals for school? And that could look a little something like this, maybe. Our readers, when we write for school, it's pretty much our teachers. We generally know who they are. They probably will read our whole paper. They have to, unlike some of the people we write to at work, right, who have more choice over whether they finish the whole report and things like that. And teachers may have given us an assignment sheet too, so we may know a little bit more about what we need to do when we write for our teacher. But the goals of that kind of writing were largely to either show that we know how to do something or to show that we know something. So whether you were writing a paper on a historic event, art history, a war, you're trying to show I understand the topic, and you're also trying to show I have skills in writing and communication. So that was really the purpose when we wrote for school. But now let's fill in the right side of those rows and columns and talk about our readers for work. Okay, big difference, right? These are just 8 examples. When we write at work, we write for so many different kinds of readers. They're not always the same person. They're not always in the same role. So we're going to just clearly have to make a lot of different decisions when we write for people at work because they're not all our teachers and they haven't all given us an assignment sheet or a set of requirements. And now we're thinking about, well, how do we adjust our language when we go from writing to a colleague or our own team to writing to the public or somebody on the board? Right? What are the differences? Our goals also are much more plentiful and diverse in work writing. Again, just be aware, right? When we wrote for school, we were always showing about ourselves and our knowledge and abilities. And we really need to transition that with writing for work because now we are not trying to show things about ourselves. We are trying to help somebody else. And that's the reader. We might be trying to just tell them something or motivate them or build trust with them. We might be trying to correct their action or redirect, agree or disagree, help or assist. But regardless of which goal it is, the reader is somebody else. So I'm no longer writing to show what I can do, but to provide something that a real live user needs. So what is that going to mean for our writing decisions? When will they be the same or different? So let's check out this Venn diagram. Always fun to compare and contrast. So looking at the middle there, we can see as you move from your school writing mindset into your work writing mindset, there are some things you want to keep in mind that will still hold true for work writing styles. Your reader will still want to see a main point. They may not call it a thesis or whatever your teacher may have called it, but if you are posting on Teams, sending an email, providing an update on another platform, you always have a point. Work writing, school writing, it's all the same. We might express our point in a different way or maybe in a different location in our writing, but we will have one. So hang on to that knowledge from school. School writing also required us to be organized and use logic and flow in our writing. Same deal. Work readers are still going to want that, right? But what's important to consider too, I think, are the differences. And so with school writing, we really have a whole different type of reader and a whole different relationship with that reader. Okay, for one thing, we know them. We know what they want because they told us during class. They probably even gave us a piece of paper with everything on it. They will read the whole thing so we don't have to vie for their attention. We don't have to fight to keep them there. We just do our best and know that they will find what we need to work on. We may have been asked to use a particular vocabulary and to show our skills. But with work writing, a lot of that really does a 180. It changes completely. Now our reader needs to find things and get things done, and they need the writing that we provide them with to be easy. They don't want to have to hunt through and figure it out. They don't want to have to cross things out and try to look for that main point. And so we need to provide all of that for them. We may not know them, we may not have instructions, but we want to think about what do they need and then create a message that's clear, that does not rely on fancy school vocabulary, but that just gets the meaning across as actively, consistently, clearly as possible. So to wrap it up, there are a few habits that we may have developed when writing for school that we'll want to get rid of or reduce a little bit. And it's worth kind of thinking about whether these habits are still impacting the way you write for work. Because for school, for example, we wrote for a word count. And we used to get really good at explaining in a long descriptive manner. Well, what if that habit is still in your mind when you go to write for work? Most people don't want an essay or a narrative in their email. They just want the main point and some bullets of the main information. So just be aware, we used to write longer things, higher vocab, imitate different writing styles that asked us to be long and sophisticated. That's not what we need at work. And so when we're writing for work, we're always back in that mindset of what does my reader need? And so take a look at some of these habits and think, well, let me just be aware that I may have those habits and that I'll want to shift those according to the Venn diagram on the last screen when I'm writing for people at work. All right, so leave me some questions in the comments. What else would you like to know about the business writing expectations? If you're entering your first career, I'm happy to help by providing some more videos on that topic or answering your questions in the comments. All right, have a good one. Do some high value writing. Let me know what you think in the comments.